Hi, I'm Jessica.
And I'm Alyssa.
And we are going to talk to you about our mix and match quilting. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about traditional quilting and traditional embroidered quilts. So if I wanted to make it a traditional embroidered quilt, I would pick out my embroidery design, I'd pick out my quilting design, and then I'd have to merge those two things together. So I would start by embroidering my embroidery design on a large piece of fabric, like you can see here that we've done. And then while I'm doing this, unfortunately sometimes you get puckers in designs because it wants to pull in a little bit. But once I've done stitching all of my blocks, I then have to try and figure out the sizing and make all those pieces go together. So once you're done stitching everything out, you need to then draw your lines and you kind of figure out what size blocks you need and what block is going to fit on all of these different designs to make them all match together when I want to sew them together.
And try and get as close as possible, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So you've got to use your clear ruler and kind of square everything off here, try and get your design in the center, which sometimes is tricky when your design isn't a square or a rectangle and you've got this shape like an antelope shape. How do you figure out what's the center of this antelope? I don't know, I just kind of guessed over here. So when you then have to come in here and trim down your blocks so that they all fit together, you're trimming away all this extra fabric, which wastes quite a bit of fabric. Then I'm going through and putting my pieces together. If I want to do any borders or sashing, I have to figure out those measurements as well. So it's something you can do. A lot of people do. It's a traditional way of doing it. But I think the way that we do things saves a little bit of time, definitely saves money and saves you fabric. So why don't you talk to us about the way that we do that?
Yes, and I think this is absolutely easier to use with your ruler and the measurements and such. So our way that we use has our quilt block inside of the hoop where you stitch your quilt block with a piece of fabric inside of the hoop. So you can see that this one here uses a lot less fabric than this one. So you can see if you were going to use your 1/2 inch seam allowance around the outside, you'd be cutting a lot less fabric and wasting a lot less fabric.
Yeah,
so basically you're pretty much wasting, not a lot, because what are you going to use the extra sides for?
Exactly.
So, and then you can see that we have all of the stippling included as well. So you have your embroidery design, and then you have your stippling along the outside, and then you have as much fabric as you pretty much need with a little bit that you need to cut off.
Exactly, and that's great that does the stippling or quilting stitches for you, because the way that I would do this traditionally, I'd have to get everything together, and either I would have to go through and stipple, or I would do what I normally do, which is quilt by check and send it to somebody else to do, and put all those decorative stitches in the background and really get that design to pop. So this seems like a much easier way.
Yeah, this way it's all included, it's all here, you don't need anything extra. You can just choose what designs you want and put them together. And so then, do you want to talk about the quilting block border?
Yeah, so again, if I wanted to add a border to my traditional quilt, I would have to either go through and do paper piecing or foundation piecing and find these blocks that are all the same size to make sure that they aligned. But it looks like it's pretty easy to do in your hoop.
Absolutely, yes, you do this in the hoop just like you did this design, and then you can pretty much piece them together along the outside and piece your quilt together to look something like this.
Well, that's great. And again, with everything matching, you've got a lot less measuring to do.
That's right.
And all of your pieces coordinate together. So we've got our same kind of background stitches all through here. All of my fabrics coordinate. I can use a fat quarter bundle. And it just looks much cleaner. Everything's squared, all of my points and my seams match, and it just seems like it's much easier to do.
It's much more put together, and I think that it allows for you to have much more variation with your designs. You can create something using the same designs, and I would create the same thing and it would look totally different.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And the nice thing too is that with our mix and match quilting, what this allows us to do is take designs that aren't quilting designs. So this is from our Into the Wild collection, which is an embroidery design that we had put on several t-shirts and sweatshirts, but when you add it to the quilting collection, it looks totally different, and it really allows me to create some cool things. And then we put this together with our Beautiful Blocks and Borders collection, and this is the Crazy Quilt border and sashing pieces that again allow me to kind of piece that together in a variety of ways.
And that's the beauty of mix and match, I think, is that you can just choose your favorites and then kind of mash them or mix and match them together to fit and to create something beautiful that's new that no one else has.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's very cool. I know while I was making this that everyone walked by and commented on how pretty it was and just, what's that collection? Where did that come from? And I said, well, these are things that we've already had, right?
You kind of created it.
Exactly.
There are collections, but we never have displayed them in this way, so there's something different.
Yeah. And I think too, when you're finishing this off, which I think is super easy, once I sew everything together, all I have to do is come to the back. You can see here, I press my seam allowances open. I just add my second layer of batting, a backing, and then all I need to do to hold everything together, we add our backing and binding, and then we just need to stitch in the ditch to hold the letters together. So even someone who's not a quilting expert can manage straight line stitching in the ditch. That way I don't have to send it to anybody to do. And then all we do is add our binding around the outside and it's finished.
Are there any other collections or embroidery and quilting designs that we can use along with this idea?
Yes, there are. So this comes from our beautiful Blocks and Borders collection. We also have a Christmas Blocks and Borders collection, which has all Christmas types of borders on it. Then we also have our first two collections, which is Foundations and Quilting Essentials, which allow us to do the same thing of merging non-mix and match designs with our quilt blocks and making a beautiful quilt.
Giving you much more designs, right?
Yeah, giving you lots of options here. So we do have another collection I want to look at down here, which is taking our different collections that are part of the mix and match and putting those together. So you can see this looks totally different.
It does. It has the binding on the outside and the borders.
Exactly.
And then you've pieced your designs in the middle.
Yep, so what this does is it takes 3 of our different mix and match collections. Now these are collections that are already part of our mix and match line. Something from our traditions, this is where these blocks are pulled from. We pulled blocks from our Jelly Roll quilt blocks, and then this border comes from our Quilter's Dream. So this allows us as well as not only create our own quilts, but mix and match will actually allow us to put several collections together using the same fabrics and colors, and you've got your own beautiful quilt. So it's very versatile and it really allows you to be very creative.
Lots of different options with the mix and match quilting.
For sure, yeah. So it's a great option there. So to look at more options that we have and learn more, you can always look in our catalog or you can pop on our website. Hopefully you enjoyed all of this information about our mix and match quilting.